You are listening to the Emulsion podcast, a show that informs and inspires the restaurant industry to work, live, and create better. My name is Justin Khanna. I'm a chef and media producer with almost 10 years of experience in award-winning restaurants all over the world. I created this show as a way to give back, to inspire the next generation, and help you progress your career. The Emulsion podcast is sponsored by you folks, and Patreon is where that happens. If you're here as a return listener and enjoyed the episode you just came from and happen to want to support more episodes, visit patreon.com/Justin Khanna. I'd really appreciate it if you can. I totally understand if you can't. Free ways you can support this show include leaving a like or comment on this episode, filling up all 5 stars on iTunes so more people can find us, or simply sharing an episode with a friend. This is an interview episode. If you missed out on asking your burning question to today's guest, that's probably because you aren't following me on Instagram or Twitter. I use the handy dandy question feature in my Instagram stories, and I also start a thread for each guest on Twitter. So between the two of those, that's the best way to take advantage of the access I hope to bring you with this show and all of the interviews I do. Let's learn a little bit more about today's interviewee, shall we?
When you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, still cleaning up after an event, you see attitude. Attitude is everything.
Yeah.
So in those crunch moments, what are people like? And not just the first time, not when they're training. After you're comfortable, afterwards everyone's like joking around and having a good time, and those like events afterwards when you're comfortable, or those environments or situations, whatever that might be. That attitude and integrity stuff is really what comes out.
What is up, folks? Welcome to episode 79 of the Emulsion podcast. My name is Justin Khanna, and my guest today is Jade Leong. Her official job title is the Chief Voyager at her company, Voyager's Table, which is an events production company and specialty catering business based right here in Seattle. Jade and I randomly met at a friend's cocktail party, and she was there shaking and pouring drinks just as a favor to that friend of ours, and her and I got to talking. She's like, I do events. I was like, I'm a chef. She's like, let's chat. And from there, one thing kind of led to another, and a few weeks after this interview, I did all the food at a smashingly successful party of hers, and she ended up asking me to be the resident chef at Voyager's Table for a season, and I wholeheartedly said yes. So that's a quickie news update for you. If there's anything that Voyager's Table does that is more than kind of a cocktail hour or one of their signature grazing tables, they consult with me on the menu and the execution of that food, which we get into a little bit in this interview. Jade is very quick to admit that she is not a chef, as much as she loves food and very well knows the power of food in bringing people together. She is very comfortable with giving me a lot of control with the food at the events that I collaborate with them on, and it makes her an insane pleasure to work with. So I'm very, very excited to announce that and continue working with her going forward. So in this episode, we talk about how to send that first email to a potential client, the key things that she uses when talking about her services, and how one of her products in particular, at the time of recording this, had a 100% success rate when she offered it to a client, which is pretty cool. Running a business outside of your home country, starting from zero and working for free, but working for free practically. I think that was a very, very key takeaway. A quickie tip on how to come up with a name for your brand, the difference between an event producer, a caterer, a wedding planner, and why it's so important to know the differences for yourself if you're wanting to get into events, and of course, so much more. I fueled Jade up with a bunch of caffeine and increased her already bubbly nature, so she truly provided a lot of amazing takeaways for not just anyone following in her footsteps, but anyone beyond. So please enjoy our conversation. For you, I'd love the state of the union on the catering space and event planning, and maybe chefs in that space, and then how you're thinking about marketing and what you're excited about right now. In what is it, May of, almost, it's June tomorrow of 2018.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so State of the Union. Okay, so that is probably something that we should cover. That's my struggle, is I don't want to be known as a catering business. One, because I'm not a chef.
Right.
And two, that's not actually our core value proposition, right? Like, our sweet spot is event strategy and production for powerful connection, to help people create powerful connections with a brand or with one another. You know, that's kind of our angle. The catering side, the grazing table, I just specifically call it grazing tables and dinner parties, is because that stuff facilitates powerful connection. So I'd love to talk, if there's a way to frame it so that it's clear, like, we aren't positioning ourselves as a catering company, but which is actually even part of why we're having a conversation, is because I want to be connected to great chefs who do amazing things.
Totally.
But I can comment on the catering situation in Seattle. Because it's kind of lacking creativity.
Do it. Just riff on it.
Yep.
Riff on it. Go.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is that for you? Like, what are you frustrated with, and why position yourself like that? Because I get like that too, where people want it one or the other, and I've had a struggle with it too, where it's like, you're a chef, what's your specialty?
Yeah.
And I hear it all the time where it's like, I can do so many things.
Yeah.
Because I've been trained in all these different avenues, but at the same time, it would be great to be known as, the Indian fusion style person, and you get called for every single one of those parties. And we've talked about this before, where you don't want to pigeonhole yourself.
Yep.
Why not? Why that way?
Yeah. Yeah. Why do we want it to be that way? There's a part of it where it's really nice to have that clarity, because it means you can collaborate really effectively with other great people.
And you know what to say no to.
Exactly. And I have had many instances, in the early days and even recently, where you're tempted to take the work because it pays, and you just know that taking it is going to be more energy, more resources than you actually should be spending. And it's this dilemma, and we're getting so much better at it because the clarity around, okay, we're very specific. Grazing tables, dinner parties, event production. But, and then we have the other side of the business, which is Voyager Talent, which is all the talent hospitality stuff that gets into the really cool kind of things, which kind of endorses our grazing table event production side of things, but it's so niche, right? Like, I get calls to go to LA to do one specific event. I fly down and I fly back.
Right,
it's it's not the same client every month. It's the same client every year that asks you back for this stuff.
Yeah.
But so to come back to why do we want to play in that lane? It's because the older I get, the more I realize I've only got limited time and energy to spend on this. I have 24 hours in a day. I have my creative capacity, and it's growing, but it's still growing, right? Like with all of us. So if you swim in a lane that's not yours, you're expending X% more energy, X%, more resources, when you could take that time, especially, and put it into doing something that you do well and generate more momentum and more business in your lane.
Totally.
And then help other people with their, their passion projects and stuff.
What's that golden ratio of like staying in your lane, but also like testing the waters in that other swimming?
Off the top of my head, like if I was instinctively to answer that, it'd be somewhere around the 15% mark for me. 10 to 15%.
Right.
So like 1 in every 10 events, we're stretching ourselves and we're doing something that we're not normally doing. But we're also doing it with a client who knows us really well, so would rather do it with us.
Totally.
And then it's like, that's why the stuff with WeWork, I'll do stuff for them or for like makers, because one, I know the venues, I know the people, and also there's a lot more forgiveness.
Sure.
So it's that dance and the strategy of going, this is a client who has no idea who we are. Let's not try to do anything that's not in our lane, because we want to wow them so that they're like mouth open, oh my God, that was phenomenal.
Sure.
And it's the other side of that is having confidence in what you do, right? So like people, we get requests all the time to do like plated sit down dinners, and I'm like, I can do it for 10 people and it's home style and I'd be there with an apron and like your nonna and it's family style, but that's not my lane.
Sure.
So I'm like, I don't like it's nice, but it's actually I'm much better at this. So if you give me this to work with, I'll give you something that I know because we've done the homework and we're seeing, what the energy of the event world is like, what gatherings and people's parties are like, because that's our job. And we're going to give you something that your guests will not have thought about or considered, and suddenly their eyes are open.
Right.
We did an event the other day where for the intellectual property lawyers kind of, conference. And it's my favorite thing when you get stuffy, suited, very reserved. I mean, these guys are like trademark lawyers. Like so...
Totally. Like...
so in their lane.
Yeah. Head in the file cabinet.
Right. they're taking pictures of the food.
Yeah.
Like, when do you go to an event
Yeah.
with a buffet and take pictures of the food? Because it was beautiful.
Sure.
It was this gorgeous breakfast. It was a grazing table. It's our signature. And so, like, these really nerdy, sweet lawyers are like, oh, taking photos. And I'm like, this is the best ever.
Right.
Like, that's when you know. That's the satisfying feeling of knowing, that's why we do this.
Totally. So take it more like super tactical, because there's a lot of people that are going to be listening that are trying to get into planning their own events or do pop-ups or whatever. I'm a client and I email you and I say, this is exactly what I want, but it's not exactly what you do as your specialty. What is that appropriate response? Do you have a Rolodex of people that you refer them to? Do you try to entice them into your own thing? Like, what is that wording? What do you use?
So the place I start is with the budget and the scope.
And you ask that question. Correct. What is your budget?
Yes.
Got it.
I'm always on the budget because, first of all, it minimizes sticker shock.
Totally.
Secondly, as you're building your business, and I find this, did this when we ran the startup, building the software, like, I want to say a lot of women entrepreneurs struggle with this as well, but I also know guy entrepreneurs who do. So it's not gendered, but it can lean towards this. You underestimate your value. Right. So the strategy of asking the budget is twofold. One, you want to know what their capacity is, how serious they are. And when you start talking money, that's when you either don't get the email back or you're like, oh yeah, here's what we were thinking. So we did an event with, I won't say the client, we did an event with a Silicon Valley company and we were talking with them about menus and blah, blah, and I asked the question about the budget. The answer that I got was twice as much as what I would have proposed. And so we obviously, you want to make sure that people get value. So you don't just do, oh, sure, you'll pay twice as much, we'll do it, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's knowing your place in the market. But getting the budget scope and their level of, what's the word, kind of risk aversion or pro-risk kind of ness is really important, because then you can go, okay, so based on what you've told me, so it's like budget, who's your client, really understanding who the guests are and who's attending. Because if it's like, and then that's where you've got to know your people as well. So if it's like creative people or it's people that you know well, it's like, okay, here's how we can move them 20% in a new direction, in an exciting direction. So you can offer something. But I find that initial conversation, asking about the scope, asking about the budget, gives you a lot of information. My preference is always to do that on the phone. A 10-15 minute conversation saves about 5 to 6 emails. Got it. So it's really, and it's also more personable, right? Like, yeah, I have an accent, so that kind of helps. But exactly. Regardless, you are, if you're thinking about getting into events, it's a service industry. It's like any hospitality job, right? Service. Yeah, so you have to be able to interact with your clients and to really woo them to do business with you. And there should be these, what I call them red flags. So it's red flags about how quickly they get back to you, how quickly they pay the deposit. So there's these little red flags that tell me whether a client is going to be high maintenance or open to suggestions or not. Right. And so those are the things that I use. And then coming back to, ask me that question one more time, because I want to make sure I answer it. The person who's wanting to get into, what is that, if I'm a client, just what does that exchange look like? And you're answering all the right questions. What are some other, like, you see those red flags where it's like they don't want to pay the deposit, they're not getting back to you. What are some best practices that you've used or that you would recommend other people to do if they experience that for the first time? So let's answer also that question you asked that was about how do you know whether to swim in your lane or to step out. And so what I like to do in that 10 to 15 minute conversation on the phone, or if it has to be by email, is let me really understand what it is you're looking for. Here's what we do really well. And I say that. I say we specialize in X, Y, Z, grazing tables, or creating environments that allow brands to really connect with their customers. Tailor it. Use the right language. Use the language that they're looking for. But make sure it's what you deliver. And from there, I also send them menus or like, you know, like here's our grazing table menu.
Right.
Here's some images of what it looks like.
Totally.
People are visual, right? Even if they're not visual people, giving them something concrete. I have not yet had a client see our grazing table format for like, we do them mostly for happy hours and breakfast. Those are the kind of the two things we use mostly for grazing tables. I haven't yet had a client or potential client receive the picture of the grazing table and not sign up with us.
Got it.
It's 100% success rate. Because it's visual
Right.
and they go, I know exactly what I'm getting. And it's very, very concrete. And especially for us in the early days, and also because this is one aspect of our business.
Totally.
I can't spend, every time I get a grazing table or dinner party inquiry, I can't spend half a day putting something together. By that time, I'm going to call you and be like, Justin, let's do this together. You design the menu, I'll do the, you know, the styling and the hosting, and we can do great.
So for me, as someone who's listening, if I'm like wanting to start an event planning business, and I hear that you, just by having content based around what you do and having a niche specialization, it totally warrants, and anybody that's listening should do a free event for somebody.
Yes.
And have your buddy who's a photographer come out and just look at it as sunk cost, because I mean, that like, you're going to spend like $200 in food cost. You're going to spend $200 to give your buddy, your photographer buddy, pay for his time. And that $400 is going to result in $4,000 of business for you. You know what I mean? So, totally.
I think
I'm right there with you.
Creating the win-win opportunities, because it's like everybody wants something out of that experience, right? So like, how do you leverage your network? And network's a dirty word now, but it's actually, how do you leverage the people that you know that have great talents? And always look after those people. Like, it's such straightforward adulting. But we're forgetting it because it's like we get attracted by the shiny stuff. And I would rather work with 10 really solid, reliable people that I know have my back. And if the shit hit the fan, they wouldn't stab me in the back and they wouldn't throw me under the bus. And that comes from, like, I've been doing free events for 18 years. I calculated it the other day.
Holy shit.
Do you know what I mean? So like, and this is also, if someone's listening and they want to get into this industry, do the time. Like, for every paid event you want to do, go find someone that you can do good stuff for. Volunteer at nonprofits. Like cut your teeth. Nonprofits are so desperate for volunteers. Cut your teeth there. There's also a lot more forgiving. And you know what? You're probably going to do a really good job and help a nonprofit to raise money or to get exposure. That's totally where I cut my teeth. And I was thinking about it yesterday. I can trace every single one of the opportunities that I have in the event world now to two things: constantly throwing really great birthday parties every year.
For yourself.
For myself. And having it be no presents, we're going to raise money for a cause. You know, by the time I was 21, I was, you know, old enough and living very comfortably at my parents' house. Right? It's like, how much stuff can you have? So again, checking my privilege, right? But like, from the age of about 21 onwards, every birthday was like, we're going to raise money for a cause, we're going to do this. That's one thing. And then the other thing was getting together with a bunch of friends, creating a foundation called Grand Aid, having that party foundation where we just threw these epic parties, and man, blood, sweat, and tears into that. We were able to then generate about, you know, like 1,500 to 2,000 kind of people that like were just supporters evangelists. And like, it's really funny. You know, when you like have these moments where you're like, oh, I think I built something cool. I was coming into the Perth airport and the customs officer looks at my passport. I'm Australian. I'm just like, okay, check me in. I don't have duty free, blah, blah, blah. She looks at my passport. She's, are you Jade from Grand Aid? And I was like, what? She's like, oh my God, I love your parties.
Perth celebrity.
I was like,
status.
I'm a personality.
That's awesome.
And so that Grand Aid thing led to doing stuff for Global Citizen, which led to the festival in New York, and so much of that. And what was it? It was giving my time to something that I cared about. So many good opportunities come out of that.
Totally.
So, yeah, I really encourage anyone who is thinking about it, roll up your sleeves, get involved, and 5 hours a week, donate some time. You can still keep a full-time job and do that.
What is Voyager's table now, and where did it start? And The question I had was, where does the name itself come from? Was that influenced by you? And like, why not self-title it? Maybe that's because you encouraged collaboration so much. And then I have another question after, but start with where it.
Oh gosh, the origin stories of Voyager's Table. Okay, so first of all, like branding is really important to me. So not about being on brand, but about saying, okay, what's the message that we send with the way we present ourselves, right?
So
like
it's more
cohesion.
So it's more present as opposed to like, this isn't what we would normally do. So it's like when you see it, you're like, whoa, these guys have it together.
Correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, Voyager's Table started out as me going, well, what do I like doing? I like bringing people together, feasting and gathering, and I like looking after people and helping. My personal philosophy in life is that my purpose is to help people fulfill their potential. Like, that's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. Sure. That's why I love collaborating, because collaborating is so natural to me, because I just like helping other people do epic shit, right? So coming back to that, the brand of Voyager's Table, the identity, let's use that word, needed to be something that was inclusive, and as opposed to, like, I could have traded on Jade Leong TM, right? 18 years of throwing events, blah, 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 relationships. And we initially, so let's try that again. Initially, we were thinking about, okay, well, what's been my MO? I've moved cities roughly every 4 years since the time I was 18. So I grew up in Perth, lived in Singapore as a kid, lived in Sydney as a kid, moved back to Perth, did high school. When I was 18, I moved to Sydney. And then went back to Perth. Then another 4 or so years later, moved to LA, lived there for a year. Then moved back to Perth. And then 30, moved to America. We moved to Seattle, right? So it's like, I've kind of lived in all these different cities. I've traveled to cities. And every time I go to a new place, the way that I've established community is by having people over to dinner. Got it. My favorite story that's kind of like a bit legend in my San Francisco friends is I got to San Francisco and I had one friend that I had met. This was probably getting on close to like 10 years ago now. Okay. And so I knew Kylie. And so I rented this Airbnb. At the time, it wasn't even Airbnb. It was like some sort of like vacation rental thing. Right. That's how old I am. And I told Kylie, why don't you come over to dinner? And so she'd invited me to this other party. I'd met some friends, invited them over to dinner. So my second day in San Francisco, I collected 10 people around a dinner table because I'd met somebody at the museum and I'd met another guy while I was sitting at a park, and I was like, hey, you guys should come to dinner at my house. And so people brought friends. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there and there's like, I can see them in my head. I can name them right here. Yeah. This is 10 years ago. 10 people that I'd never met more than a month. Like Kylie was the person I'd known the longest, about a month before. And we had a dinner party. And it was like this epic night of conversation and interaction. And those people are still my friends today, have moved to different cities, and we still catch up. And it's like...
From a single
cold, like literally a Finnish software developer who I've never seen again. We're still on LinkedIn. Hey, how you doing? Right. It's so crazy. So the whole Voyager's Table thing is because it's literally that. My whole life has been traveling to different cities and bringing people together around a table, and that concept of the table is this kind of ancient technology. Sure. Because I'm a little bit of a technology nerd. It's an ancient piece of technology that allows people to tell stories, to come together for sustenance, for support, for food. It's like, it's a symbol for us. And then the whole Voyager thing is that wherever we go, because I've traveled all these places, that we're actually kind of a global kind of entity as well. The origin story of the name and how that came is like a whole other thing. But that is the essence and the heart behind it.
Of what it is.
And I owe it to two really great friends. One of my friends, Dave Hack from Perth, he and I started Grande together with some friends. He initially said, you've got to have something table, like the Liang table. It's got to be something table. Right. And then Andrew Salaturi, who's a branding guru, design guru here, he's a mate of mine, and he actually came up with Voyager's Table as the name. Got it. It's like, people that know you, they know your heart, they know what you're good at, get them to help you with your identity. Like that's important because you see yourself reflected back.
Yep.
So if that's any advice,
and you know what hits and what doesn't hit.
Correct. Yeah.
What would be a win for you for Voyager's table?
Right now, we are focusing on getting consistent repeat clients. The events industry is really hard, right? It can be really one-off. It's also why we've been really cautious about playing in the wedding space. You can get a lot of referrals from a wedding because people see it, blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
But there was 2 reasons we didn't get into that. And I'll come back to the wins. But one of the reasons is there's so many great people who do weddings, especially in Seattle. And it's a very, it's emotionally such a draining industry.
Totally.
Right? So we know that we can do it, but we like to support other people to do it and only take a very limited number. So we only take 5 weddings a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's whether that's day of, week of, month of, or full production. So that we can be focused. And it's usually people that know us reputationally for something else that approach us to talk about a wedding. And I'm open with, potential clients about that. That we're really selective, partly because we want to give them the best. We want to give them the best, but also we may not be the best person for them for that particular occasion. So coming back to the wins, those repeat clients would be companies or individuals or organizations, whether that's like a brand or a nonprofit, social enterprise, or even just like people that want to do cool stuff, is doing 3 to 4 events a year for those same clients.
Sure.
That consistency. And really getting to push the boundaries of that event production and the creative and visual concepts that we include. I think there's so much more, especially in cities like Seattle, that can be stretched. And I think people are more open to it than they've ever been.
Right.
But I think we're still a ways off, being at the level of production value that you might see in, say, like a New York or a Hong Kong or a Tokyo, where it's just, you kind of sit there and you go, am I in real life right now?
Yeah, totally.
So that's the kind of stuff that we want to do. 3 to 4 really consistent clients.
And it prevents that initial back and forth getting to know each other, right? Because
Exactly.
it's like, we want what you did last time, but in this way. I have one coming up in July, and it's the second time I've worked with them, and it's a completely different experience. Because then it's like, again, they know what to expect.
Yep.
You know what to expect and the questions to ask. And
Exactly.
And it's also the same party for me. It's just an annual event that they do.
Yep.
Totally.
If I was to add to those wins, we are starting to really, as the Voyager talent side, we're starting to really get some wonderful requests. We have a couple of clients that just consistently come back to us, 2-3 events a year. So hence the wanting to build that. So those clients really ask us to handle green room hospitality, the talent welcome, like when you've got 20 to 30 to, we've done up to 75 different celebrities, dignitaries, speakers appearing on stage over the course of say a 6-hour festival we do with Global Citizen, actually 8 hours.
Yeah.
Juggling that, managing the production side of things, and then managing the hospitality for Oscar winners. I mean, crazy environments that we're in. We're looking to expand more into personalized hospitality for different talent.
Got it.
So it's it's a goal, it's a big, long shot, but at the same time, we've got that groundwork in place.
And once you're there, it's then the word travels so fast.
Exactly.
It's word of mouth and totally.
So that's the space we're playing in.
Going back to when you were traveling and hosting all these parties and reflecting it on how you run your business now, what trait or skill do you think you possess or that you've honed that makes what you do stand out?
I go into a happy place. So there is when I'm in that event madness, it's like the whole world moves in slow motion and I'm just in this zen. I mean,
that's flow, no? That's what people say is flow. Yeah.
I go into a state of flow. And so a couple of friends have commented that I'm the calmest cook they've ever seen. It's just 25 people, the food arrived late or the groceries arrived late, and I'm just Like in this blissed out state, just like never stressed, you know?
Interesting.
It just doesn't, it's like there's something so comforting for me about being in that place.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I get a lot of energy from people. And I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. Like, I mean, I was throwing dinner parties when I was a teenager, but 18 to 36. This is just like every day, every week, 4 to 5 times a week. That's the environment that I put myself in.
Do you ever go the reverse? Do you ever find yourself like frazzled and stressed out and Because I would say if I was trying to dissect you, I would, because I have the same thing where I was never the screaming chef. I was never the berating tradition. Like, what do you think of?
Yeah.
And to me, control is the thing that I love. It's why I don't like drinking, because I feel like I lose control over my senses. It's why I don't like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe that is that word for you. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree, because I can think of times when I've been flustered. And it's funny because there are moments when I'll have team members that know me well look at me and go, what's happening? Because they'll see it on my face. I just look like I'm a woman on a mission. But that's also when I'm just like, I'm focused and I'm getting my job done.
Sure.
It's my don't F with me face,
you know?
Yeah. But there are, the first ever really big festival we did, when your partners are also stressed and there's miscommunications that happen.
Got it.
If that's the first time you're in that environment, like this was the first time I had ever done something of that scale. And I have learned since then that there's probably very, very few times where it'll be ever that crazy.
Sure.
And now also we've already been through it once, so you're like, oh wait, I don't have to poop my pants.
I've seen this before.
You know, so it's like you have to have those experiences, and this is why I'm all about people volunteering or doing, whether it's an internship or just helping out, because you can break that ground for yourself.
Right.
It's like, oh shit, I am supremely under pressure right now, and you get that feeling, and you understand what that feels like. I would say, I want to say it was like 5-6 years ago that was like the biggest, like, okay, that's the major pressure. And then you realize that everybody else in that environment is also shitting their pants.
Sure.
So in the aftermath, you're like, oh, okay, so no one didn't want me back. Nobody, like, wasn't happy. They were like, you were amazing, and how the heck did we pull that off? And so kind of breaking the ice on that stuff. So, but yeah, definitely had that feeling.
Sure.
But it's when you don't know what questions you can ask. It's the control, right? It's like, and so now I over ask, and I explain why I over ask to my clients. It's like, I sent an email yesterday, and I said, I do apologize for all these emails, but we want to ensure, given this is our first time working with you, we are an extension of your brain, and we can anticipate everything that you need.
That's so
especially
underrated.
in the talent stuff. Because the talent stuff, most people are faking it. Nobody actually knows what they're doing, but don't tell anyone. So it's like, oh, okay, you don't know either.
Right.
So let's not know together.
Yeah.
I got your back, man.
Got it.
And you actually earn a lot of respect and relationship. Particularly because, like, some of these production guys, they've seen everything. One of my buddies, he's been the tour manager for some of the most major stadium shows in the world. He's not fazed by it. You can try to impress him.
Right.
But, it doesn't matter how many Grammys you got on your shelf. He's like, I know what you look like when you're in dressing room without your makeup on. It's very, like, humanizing to be behind the scenes like that. And so I think, especially with the talent stuff, there's a lot of respect for the skill. And I have seen some performers, and I won't say who, but there was a performer who was going through extreme physical pain. Got up on stage, flawless rehearsal, flawless performance, got off stage, had to be taken to hospital.
Wow.
Like when and that's where it gets clutch. So when you're in those environments and you're just like, oh my God, what do I ask? People are used to you asking stupid questions. You do it in a way that's respectful. You try to do it to the right people who seem like they have time for you. That's... I'm giving away too many of my trade secrets now.
Totally. But there's an author, I just finished his book called Principles, and he talks all about radical transparency. And it's just so...
Tell me about this book.
And it's so... powerful.
Yeah.
Just because if I see what your chips are and you see what my chips are, and we show each other what our cards are, then there's no like, if I would have known this, I could have done this. You know what I mean? And just by, it's so underrated, and some people are so, it ekes them out to ask those questions because they think that they're going to be seen as not having all the information. It's an ego thing, right? And once you can cast that aside and be like, we both want the same thing. Let's work. Totally.
And I will say, if I was to give advice to a young me, you're going to get people that are just dicks. Right? You are. You legitimately are going to get, there's going to be 1 in 100 people. But they will not last long in the industry, whatever industry that is, or other people will know that that person is also a dick.
Right.
So, and excuse me if I'm using language we can't use in the podcast, but it's like, the longer I live, and I'm really not that old, but I'm old enough, right? The longer I live, the more I realize, like, it's really hard to hide your dickhead. Like, it's very difficult, and especially in high pressure environments, that truth is going to come out.
Yeah, it comes out real fast.
So then you learn not to work with those people. And there's people that my mentors in the entertainment industry have said, yep, they absolutely refuse to work with that person.
Interesting.
Or if they're in an event where they have to work with that person, it's like they set up all sorts of parameters and boundaries, and it's like, we just know this is going to be a shit show.
Totally.
And then you don't take it personally. And I think that's where it's also, you've got to have a thick skin. Again, coming back to the cutting your teeth. Get the thick skin as quickly as you can.
Right.
So then you're like, yep.
Got it.
You actually, one of my team members, my business partner, she says she tries not to let people affect her chi. Your internal energy is yours to own. It's one of the best things that she's ever said to me, because I'm like, yes. How does that person get to decide your energy? It's like, they're there. Then it's not your life. Like, they are who they are. Maybe the shit will hit the fan. Maybe they'll even try to throw you under the bus. But the people that you want to work with again are going to know that you do a good job, and that over time your integrity will come through. I think integrity is such an undervalued thing. We like the idea of it, but it's really hard to stick to that, especially in the crunch moments. Taking ownership where you fucked up.
Right.
And it could be that you fucked up getting Lady Gaga to the stage or whatever it might be. Own that and go, yep, okay, that's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
People know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm going to tell a quick story because it's very...
Also, I'd like to say for the record that didn't actually happen.
Lady Gaga was not late to the stage.
Her team were very happy.
Yeah. There was a day in culinary school where we were doing... There was a class in so my school is like Hogwarts, right? It was in the 4th floor of this grandiose, big, huge building, and it was like an old building. So the floors are not like, the floors are like, one floor is like 1.5 floors.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And it was like on the 4th floor in this, all the way at the end of the hallway, and I overslept for the class. And it was like one of the, it was like one of the 2 days when it was a butchery class, so normally we were in the butcher shop. It was one of the 2 days that we were in the classroom, and I overslept. And I just woke up and I put on my stuff and I ran all the way up the stairs, 4 floors up. I took 30 seconds just to kind of catch my breath before I walked in. And I just walked in. Person is lecturing. Everybody looks at me. Of course, super stereotypical thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just sit down in my chair and I get out my notebook and I start whatever, taking notes or whatever. And the instructor goes, what happened? And I just looked at him and I go, I'm just late. And then he was like, okay. And it just completely ended the conversation. And people 2 weeks after were telling stories about how that happened, because it was just such supreme. There's a lot of shitheads, dude. There's a lot of people who would have been like, I got caught up in traffic, blah, 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 throwing excuses at your face. Just own it. Just be like, I'm just late. You know what I mean? And it spoke so many, I don't know. I just think it's really underrated to do stuff like that, where it's just yes, I fucked up. And it's that it's just how it happened. It's not going to happen again. And
right. And I'd like to also say to everyone listening, you and we're talking about integrity. I can count many, many times where I failed in that area. Where I go back and I go, oh shit, I should have owned up to that. Or I was flaky, or I was this. So it's we're all human.
Yeah.
But especially so this is where I try to be really like, I am a professional. When I'm in that environment, how do I maintain my professional integrity? And that, you know, as a generation, and I use that term to describe like, as a generation that currently exists on the earth, reputation is like such a thing. Like our personal public image, what people see on social media of us. I'm more interested about the reputation that actually really matters, which is, what do people think of me in terms of who I am as a person?
But that's what they say reputation is what people say about you behind your back, right? I mean, that was my definition of reputation, is what do people say about Jade when Jade's not around? You know what I mean? That's what it is.
And in order to not overwhelm myself with like, because you can start to get really down, like, I'm a shitty person, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I try to just focus on getting one aspect of reputation which for me right now, because we are building a business professionally, that's the reputation I want to have. Now, also, be a good friend. But as I've been building a business, first a startup and now this, sometimes I'm not available as a friend in the way that I want to be.
Sure.
And so owning that, like I've had to send emails and say, I'm sorry I'm not around. I know you're going through this really hard time, but I'm under so much pressure right now.
Yourself.
X, Y, Z. And like owning that, but sometimes it's 3 months late. Like that's happened. Or a text message that's like, I'm the worst at replying to Facebook messages. Like so bad at it.
Yeah, I'm getting really bad too.
It's like,
I hear you.
But I also hope that, you know, and the people that you want to surround yourself with and allow into your inner world will understand that you're still a good person and that you care about them, but your capacity is limited. You can't be everything to everyone all at once.
Right.
The saying goes, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once.
Yeah.
And that's kind of philosophy for me.
That's true. There's a lot of, 50% of the people that are going to be listening to this are living outside of the US. So,
my favorite.
As someone who has gone from internationally to the US, what has America presented you with challenge-wise and opportunity-wise?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things. I have so much love for this country. It's been wonderful to me. And it's really funny because, like I said, when I was about 24, I moved to LA. Before that, I had the attitude that I think a lot of people had about America, which was like, oh, they think they're so great, but they're really not.
Sure.
Like, and it wasn't malicious. It was just this sort of like, you know, sometimes American confidence can be read as arrogance. Sometimes it is, but most of the time, Americans are just super confident people. And they're very open about their feelings. That's what I have like found. And now I'm like more American in that way. And I'm like, oh, and I go back to Australia and I realize I almost don't know how to have conversations with people for the first week. I'm like, oh, got to change the way I talk. Because the nuances of that culture is so different. I think the challenges that I've faced have been primarily structural. So navigating banking and navigating the systems and how you run a business. And, you know, I'm the kind of goody two-shoes that always wants to be on the correct side of the law and of the country that's hosting me. You know, like, I'm very cautious about that, particularly in a country like America where there's a lot of misperception about immigration and blah, blah, blah. And we won't get into that. But I found that navigating the structures and systems was my big challenge. But there were also plenty of people who'd done it before. And those people became a resource, whether it was through blogs or through whatever. The other thing for me was navigating the different states and the cultures of different states. Like, I've been to quite a few of the different states, but I've only really lived on the West Coast. That was something for me that I was like, oh, understanding the scope of America. Because you come from the outside, especially if you haven't traveled extensively in the US, and you kind of see it as one giant country. Where actually it's like 50 individual countries operating together in this united state. And so being respectful of that, I think, was one of the things that I'm very glad that I came with this sort of like wide-eyed, mouth open, like, whoa, like, what is this? Tell me about your place, America. Because, you know, Florida to Seattle, it's like a whole different world. And some people will never go to either of those places and they will live their entire life in the US.
That's true.
So definitely a challenge navigating, and there's a lot of complexity because the state laws are different to the federal laws, and just being across all of that. If we want to touch on visa stuff, I'm really lucky. Australians that have specialty qualifications can, there's a special visa for us.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the same challenges with visa or work permit stuff that some other countries will have.
Right.
Forever grateful that my parents, emigrated to Australia, and I was born and raised there. So I can't kind of talk about that as much. But I can say, do your homework. Like, get advice, get as much information you can, whether it's about immigration or law or like finance, because the financial structures here, for me, that was one of the biggest challenges, the whole credit thing. I did not understand that before I moved to America, and it's so different. So those are the challenges, which I think are like, they're big, but they're not insurmountable. You just got to do the hard yards. And then the benefits, oh my gosh, like, this is the biggest commercial market in the world, right? So for me, the opportunities that we had, my business partners and I, our board, like, we were like, okay, if we really want to test our software product, where do we go?
Right.
This was when I was running the startup.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, America, that's the place, which is kind of what brought me here in the first place, right? So, or actually, that's not correct. I came out to see what was happening and then realized there was an opportunity. Had a few other people realize that with me. Then we started the startup here. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey. And so opportunities, the people, the experiences, it's so diverse.
Totally.
So diverse.
That's very open-minded.
It is. It's so much more open-minded than people give it credit for. This is such a great country.
Right.
I think what people have seen is, unfortunately, that kind of impression that the world gets of America, which when I lived in LA and I've had since living in Seattle, it's not the case. Like, people are so genuine and they're so interested in me as a person and my story, and oh my gosh, you're from Australia and tell me more about that. Like, there's this curiosity. Partly because it is already such a diverse country, right? I think that's such a benefit. So yeah, economically, culturally, it has expanded my view of the world and my scope. But yeah, definitely from a business perspective, like, you kind of want to test your mettle in the biggest market in the world, and this is where to do it.
I mean, it seems weird for me to say that we don't, as someone who got brought up in the American school system, it's also not something that, like, we don't learn about how to do your taxes and what credit is and how to establish an LLC, because frankly, the system is set up so that you and I are like the 1% of people that have a business. So it's like, it's silly to tailor things focused unless you go to a business school or a law something. But
which is so funny to me because it's a country that's built on
entrepreneurship, right? And capitalism, right? So I mean, I've been going through those things too, like how to figure out how to establish this and what does payroll look like and what does a 1099 look like to create. So when you were going through that, was it Google was your friend and you whatever, or were there some specific resources that you found valuable?
So yes, Google's your friend, but and this is always my MO, people.
Got it.
Get around smart people.
Totally.
The best resources I ever got in my business was a really great accountant. And that, especially if you have business partners, like, we're governed by a board, partly because of the way that we need to be structured to ensure our compliance with all the XYZ dots and I's and T's and crosses and whatever. Some people may not need to have that level of complexity. We like it because it protects us from, just like it demonstrates good governance. And having been involved in, philanthropic kind of advisory stuff, good governance is something that when you're looking to take on investment, when you're trying to attract funding or trying to grow, it's gonna be like a little noise.
Little bump.
When you're trying to grow, that stuff really helps you. And I learned that the hard way from Australian business stuff. The other key piece of advice that I would say to anyone starting their own business, especially if you're involving partners, have company representation and have your own representation.
Got it.
And have them separate.
Yeah.
We had an experience in Australia where the company representation was also the representation for one of our partners. Now, nothing crazy bad happened, but towards the end of that business, I could see that there was a conflict of interest happening that worked in the favor of the partner, not in favor of the business. To the extent that 2 years later, we were still dealing with that unfolding for that. Now, we're not talking about a huge, like, financial or whatever. We got really lucky that the fallout was very minimal. But a business partnership is a marriage. You need to be as serious. Like, I cannot emphasize this enough. I could not do what I do with our partners and our great board, but be so selective who you have. Make those people prove themselves. Prove yourself to those people and do the homework. Because a bad partnership is as bad as a bad marriage.
Do you practice the same kind of like conversation having, or maybe even more, with your partners as you do with your clients? When, like, we talked about radical transparency before, right? Like,
way more.
Do you have those conversations of like, what happens if your sister dies tomorrow? You know what I mean? You have those conversations, yes?
And what I like to do in this, if we take Voyager's table into account, like, so if I'm talking about our current context, right? We work together. I like to bring people into the business on a contract 1099 kind of basis. Which, and for those listening overseas, it's 1099 is like an external contractor. They provide contract services to you. They're not an employee, so you don't carry that same burden, but you're able to work together closely.
Legally.
Correct. And it protects everybody, you know, kind of keeps all the lines clean. It's a great way to, especially in event environments, there's high pressure, we do that stuff together, you get to know people real fast. When you're up at 2:00 in the morning, still cleaning up after an event, you see attitude. Attitude is everything. So in those crunch moments, what are people like? And not just the first time, not when they're training, after you're comfortable, afterwards everyone's like joking around and having a good time, and those like events afterwards when you're comfortable, or those environments or situations, whatever that might be, that attitude and integrity stuff is really what comes out. So the people that I work with, I know, super clutch, will get the job done no matter what. And then as a leader, as a manager, creating opportunities also for people to take ownership. Because if you go, oh, well, this is my business, and you don't get, it's like, it doesn't work like that. All of our team have personal ownership over our brand, over our relationships with clients. And that's why I know I can be in Australia, like I was telling you. Was in Australia, the team was doing an event without me, and the client is so happy. As a small business owner,
crazy.
That's a dream.
I mean, that means you've built a business, right? I mean, that's the thing that I heard that the other day, where it's like, if you can't step away from your business, you have a job, not a business. Right? So we were talking a little bit prior to this about, when I hear about, I hired a CPA this year. I very much so, that was very hard for me, because I like to know kind of like what's going on, and I have a lot of pride in knowing like what the numbers are going on with my business, and it's very hard for me to outsource that, but at the same time, like we were saying, that's not my strength.
Can I put it behind you?
That's not my strength. So why should I be doing that? What do you build like an ideal day for me, for you, and what do you kind of like look to delegate out, because you know that it's not your strength?
I think this comes with time. So like 20-year-old me doing this is very different to 36-year-old me. And I don't mean that in an ageist way. You just learn stuff. You also learn stuff about yourself. And that's the thing I'd start with, is know thyself. Not in this super introspective, can't get out of your own head way, but it's like, be real. What are the things you're really good at? Try a few things. Figure it out. Does it flow? Do you experience flow? And then what are things that you can do, but you have other people in your world that are amazing at? So like, we'll use social media for as an example. I can do social media. It is not my strong suit. Like, I'm not too bad. I can take a good photo. I know a moment that's going to kind of connect well with people. Like, I can predict that stuff. And, you know, I've got my finger on the pulse. But in terms of executing a social media strategy, forget that. Like, if our social media was up to me, we'd post probably once every 2 weeks. I'd remember. Or I'd just do stories. It would be so bad. But I had this amazing person in my life, Erica, one of my partners, She's a business partner. Let's use the right language. One of my business partners, super on point, so organized, and has the ability to map out our social media. All our awesomeness on social media. Like, I get these lovely comments from people like, I love following your social media. But we're new. We're not doing anything crazy revolutionary, but it's hitting somebody in the sense that they can really connect with it. They are liking what we're putting out, and it's authentic to us.
Sure.
There's no way I could execute that.
Got it.
So it's like, for me, it's figuring out, what am I good at? I'm good at this right here. I'm good at having a conversation. I'm good at strategy and vision and kind of getting people excited about what the possibilities are. I have good energy for that, right? So then that's what I should be doing. So most of my day is relationships, meetings, strategizing, dreaming dreams about events, and then going, all right, let's break it down. Okay, about a third to half is going to be that business development, relationship management, vision casting stuff. Then the other half is putting that down to paper. Because there are aspects of the logistics and the planning that I am very good at and can do well.
With your almost 20 years of experience, right?
Correct.
Like, you know the questions to ask about, like, are they going to have an ice machine? You know what I mean? Like, all those little...
Exactly.
Totally.
So again, that's your, Malcolm Gladwell calls it the 10,000 hours thing, right? So what's your 10,000 hours?
Sure.
Do those things. And then, like, initially I had to do some accounting things, some like of the legal stuff. And then the more you can grow, the faster you want to outsource. So like, now I just know how to invoice a client.
Yep.
Because, proposals have to go out quickly. We have a 24-hour turnaround on all our proposals.
Sure.
And if it's a bigger scope, we ask for more time, or we say, we set clear boundaries.
Got it.
Oh my gosh, it's so important. And be accountable to those boundaries. Like, sometimes stuff happens. And it's like that saying that ownership, right? The integrity. It's like, sometimes stuff happens. Like, I've had family members who haven't been well this year. We've had all sorts of things happen personally that really interrupt your ability to do stuff. Be honest. I'm very open, and I don't mean it as this is an excuse. It's like, this is literally a very challenging situation right now. This is when I'm going to have this to you. Thank you for your patience.
Totally. So that I think, and you said it, and I was going to say it if you didn't say it, but when you're delivering that bad news, it's so much less of a sting if you're able to present a solution right away. You know what I mean? And to me, as someone who has experienced delegating, if you're going to come to me with a problem, and I heard this again on another podcast where it's like, don't come to me and tell me that we have a problem. Tell me we have a problem, but then be like, these are 3 solutions I came up with. This is what I think is the best. What do you think is the next 2? And that makes it so easier for someone like you to be like, then you bring in your 18 years of experience, make a decision, and then we can all move on.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, we rescheduled this podcast like twice, and it was so easy. You know what I mean? Like, zero issues, right?
Exactly.
Because it's like, doesn't work here. I have this area free. Is it free for you? You know what I mean?
As opposed to sending 5 emails backwards and forwards, like, I can't do that time. I'm like, and not that we did this, but I get those emails, and I'm like, no, you can't do that time. Give me windows when we can put something in.
Totally.
Also, scheduling things by emails is like death by emails.
Stupid.
I hate that.
Stupid.
So minimizing emails. Okay, so that's a lot most of the day. 20%, 15-20% is going to be connecting with the team. Whether it's talking with Erica or trying to, because she's the one who keeps me on track with this stuff. And there's certain people in our business that I know we wouldn't be where we are without them.
Help.
There's just no way. And so doing your best to stay on top of the stuff they need you to do. It's an area I'm still growing in, so being very open. Like, I miss deadlines for Erica all the time, but we have strategy. So again, follow-up strategy. She knows that if I'm under the pump, because yesterday, for example, was hustling out a big proposal for a client in LA. It's a big deal. It's important to get it right.
Sure.
I always try to write emails that they can respond with, yes, let's do it. Like, that's what I'm shooting for. So in order to do that, I sometimes take a little longer to frame the language, make it a no-brainer.
Totally.
Which then takes me away from being able to do approval of social media stuff. We have a Slack communication platform. She will Slack message me, here's the image, here's the caption, are you cool with it? I take 2 seconds to reply, perfect, yes, or copy the caption, edit it, back it goes.
Got it.
When I have more bandwidth, we go into our spreadsheet, I can respond to each individual thing, we can comment, we can workshop, but it's that trust and it's having a process. So we've built a process that when she knows I'm under the pump and I can be honest with her and say, I am barely keeping my head above water right now.
Right.
She knows how to get things to me so I can help her, so I can make it easy for her to do what she needs to do.
Sure.
So it's that, you know, you navigate these things, you figure out your process and you know, team dynamics and making sure that those are good. So she knows, like, she's like, Jade, I need this. Or I'm just going to do this. You know, like.
Totally.
And she knows she can be real with me on that. I'm
going to rapidly switch gears into some rapid fire questions.
Do it.
What's the best meal you've had in recent memory?
Oh my gosh. I'm like totally blanking.
It doesn't have to be here. Let's move on to another one and you can think about it. It's a Saturday morning on your first day off after a work week. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a Saturday, but it's your first day off.
It's my first day off.
You're like standing in front of your kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make your eggs for yourself?
Oh, I'm a Gordon Ramsay scrambled eggs with creme fraiche and chives. And lots of butter. Equal parts eggs, butter, and creme fraiche.
Totally. Super creamy. Would it change if you made eggs for Erica or no? Same.
Unless there were dietary restrictions,
That's your favorite way to make eggs.
Yeah, and I have said this to you so many times. I'm a cook, not a chef, right? Like it's people come to my house, they know they're gonna have full happy tummies, but I'm not gonna be Michelin, you know, fiddly diddly.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Name an ingredient you're obsessed with right now.
Cheese.
Cheese?
Parmesan cheese. Yeah.
I mean, it makes everything better.
Yes. Parmesan cheese and Middle Eastern spice blends.
Got it.
So so you know how we were talking about you're exploring India? I'm like, I want to understand the spice blends of the Middle East and the different kind of...
I made a really good morel risotto the other day with Parmesan. Nice. It was super good. I mean, maybe you don't have an answer for this. Maybe you do. Is there a cookbook that you've gifted most or are most likely to recommend that you've got inspiration from?
Yes.
Okay.
Stephanie Alexander's The Cook's Companion.
Okay.
Anyone can use this cookbook. It is structured differently in that it is structured by ingredient. So I have some asparagus and I will go to the asparagus section and it will tell me what goes well with it. It's got some amazing recipes. Plus it's Australian, so it's kind of just a bit different.
Yeah.
It also tells you what the different ways are to prepare it. So if you're a beginner or if you're like an experienced chef just looking for some inspiration in the moment, that is the #1 book I recommend everyone to own.
Cool. I don't have that on my shelf, so I definitely need to...
It's well worth it.
Yeah.
It's also pretty. It's like a pretty multicolored book, so
totally.
It's good fun.
Totally. Is there a technique that you're intimidated by still in the kitchen?
Yes, anything with knife skills. Which is why I'm friends with you.
Anything that's not scrambling eggs.
Yeah, exactly.
You get a call right now after this interview that you just won an all expenses paid trip to eat at your dream restaurant, and when you get there, there's someone you've always wanted to talk to waiting to have dinner with you. What restaurant is it and what person is it?
It's Osteria Francescana. And I would have dinner with Amal Clooney.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating.
Like, all right, tell me about your brain and your life and what are you like as a person?
For real though.
Yeah, for real.
We have like 2.5 hours.
Yes.
Did you think of a best meal?
Yes. Actually, so it was on Sunday night.
Okay.
And it was at Nook in Vancouver, English Bay, beautiful sunset. We rocked up to this restaurant at 8:30 with 9 people.
Whoa.
On a Sunday night, on the busiest Sunday night ever.
Risky.
Because all of Vancouver was out.
I mean, it's the first, like, nice weekend of the year.
The servers and the bartender were so incredibly accommodating. And now, like, you know, like, I'm in the industry.
Totally.
We entered apologizing.
Right.
We were like, we get it. If you can't take us, no stress. We didn't realize it was going to be so crazy because usually Sunday nights are kind of chill.
Yeah.
But I forget that Vancouver's a party city, and so any good night, people are out until really late.
Totally.
So it was good because of the people. It was a cluster of motley friends who had never met each other. It's kind of my favorite environment. The food was amazing. The whipped ricotta toast with honey and pecan nuts.
Totally.
So simple and beautiful. But it was actually the service was just, I was like, how are you so nice to us? You have no reason to, and they were so accommodating. We like apologized. And then at the end also we're like, we want you to really know, like you were so good to us. They were so great. And like we made it clear, we totally understand if you can't accommodate, so please don't feel pressure. And they were just so cheerful. No, we'll get drinks at the bar, got you.
Cool.
Have some drinks. Yep, guys, we've got your table ready. Like they finagled some tables to make it work for us, and you're like, wow. And then all of us individually, without having a conversation, tipped twice as much as we would normally, more than plus.
For sure.
Because we were all like, how could we not? So, we really looked after the server and the bartender because they had looked after us. So that was my most favorite meal in recent memory.
That's good. I'm going there next week, so maybe I'll have to check out.
Send you my list.
Have a drink down there. I know I said this was going to be rapid fire, but there's two questions that I want to dive a little bit deeper into.
Okay.
One is you were talking about when you're at that moment in the event where it's a crunch moment and someone new has been brought on a 1099 and you're kind of evaluating them. I always like to ask, what do you look for if you're sitting, like if I'm wanting to work for Voyager's table, what are those questions you ask to either kind of like raise those red flags right away or kind of like tease out this person is a good fit for me and my business? What are those questions that you ask or what qualities you look for?
Initiative. First and foremost.
Got it.
So, initiative that is aware of the other people and what they're up to. So, you can show initiative and then be careless with it, and then it causes more problems.
Got it.
It's that emotional quotient combined with initiative that someone's like, okay, I know what I'm good at. I offer a suggestion. This happened the other day. We had a trainee join us, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, like, that's ultimate test time. She likes mornings, so But when you're in that environment, and I'm not a super morning person, I like to say I'm very happy to be awake, but I'm not always sharp.
Got it.
So it takes me a minute.
And
I'm open with that with my team. I'm like, you guys know, mornings are not my best time. Let's work together. Let's support one another. So, establishing first, I think, as a good leader, you want to establish that this is a collaborative environment. We look after each other.
Sure.
But I have responsibilities and I have to make calls that sometimes may not gel with what you are hoping for, but it doesn't mean your opinion's not important. And that's something I'm still learning how to do, especially in a business where I work with a lot of friends. Having those hard conversations sometimes is challenging. So I would look for the initiative. I would look at how aware they are of other stuff that's going on.
Totally.
I think, and you would be better to talk to this than I, but if you're a line cook, for example, you have your one dish or whatever. And then in some events, it's like you have your one job. In our business, there's never one job.
Totally.
You're doing this right now, and I need to move you over here. And, okay, you're on green room registration check-in welcome, but actually we need to staff you over here to look after the president of Ghana because their team has 25 people with them.
Right?
That happens.
Right.
So you've got to be so, on it, but that doesn't mean everybody's on it the same way.
Totally.
And so that becomes my responsibility to kind of read the people dynamics and the skills and say, okay, you're more introverted, you like details, or you're like a gregarious introvert. So let's put you with these one group of people so you can entertain them the whole day. But you're going to be exhausted by the end of it, but you won't have had to meet 500 people. You've just been with the same people, and you did an amazing job looking after them.
Sure.
So understanding people and then applying that to new team members. How do they handle pressure? But also being a good leader, you don't want to just... It's not okay to throw people in the deep end.
Totally.
Right? You want to have like a measured risk, measured kind of pressure.
Or you're challenging them.
Yes, you're challenging them, but you're not like drowning.
Exactly. Forcing them underwater.
Yeah, exactly. Finding that balance. And then how do they interact with the rest of the team? Like, again, our business is so cohesive, interactive. We have to have a team that works well together. That when someone else is under pressure, you can come and support them, or go, hang on, give me 5 minutes, I'll just finish this and then come and help you.
Totally.
And it actually creates really solid bonds, which then for me as a business owner, right? Like, I can then step away and know that the team has cohesion, they know how to communicate with one another. So that's kind of the key stuff that I look for. Right.
And so much of this show and the content that I make is all about making sure that the next generation gets that kind of, I mean, mentorship is one thing to say, but it's also like has resources to look to when they're starting off.
Yep.
Is there something that you see that either event planners or chefs or people in the industry can be doing better to help the next generation? What would you like to see more of so that when you do sit down with those people that are new, you're like, okay, you have your stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, to answer that question, I think about what do I wish that I had, say 10 years ago, that I could have started doing this 10 years ago. And I'm very glad that I didn't. I got so much life experience and so many cool things. But I think there's probably an element where, and I mean, this is, I think, a good life skill, people learning how to have hard conversations early on and in a productive manner. That's just good in life.
Totally.
And actually the world would be a much better place if we all had good conflict resolution skills. So that's one thing that I think we can learn better. That, you know, our industry and casting a broad net over hospitality and events, we're not famous for being good at conflict resolution.
Totally.
What happens is, and especially whether it's like a co-worker relationship or an employee relationship or whether it's a client, if someone doesn't like something, you never get asked back.
Yep.
Whether that's as an employee or as a client. So even with our clients, I try to be very like on the front foot with that and say, this is our first time working together.
Yeah.
We want to do this again with you.
Right.
After this event, if there's stuff that you actually want us to do differently or you're really disappointed about, I just want to make sure you understand.
Yeah.
We want to know. And we understand if something happens and you don't want to work with us again, but we hope that we can learn and grow from this experience. I mean, it's like completing the survey at the end of the customer service call. It's really creating that environment of constructive feedback, because then you also set parameters in place where it's not okay to give non-constructive feedback. Like that kind of like histrionic it's like, well, you're just stressed right now and you're taking it out on us. That's not cool. So it's boundaries, how to set boundaries. That would be another thing that I think in the events and hospitality world, we're not great at doing because it's a service industry.
Yeah, so you want to be in the yes business.
It's the yes, however, or the yes with these parameters.
Sure. I understand.
And I think as a generation, we're starting to move into a time where it's less acceptable to shit on somebody. Right? Like, I feel that.
Because that will follow you.
Yes.
Right?
And it's unerasable from the cloud internet being that controls us all.
It's true. It's so
I think having that, healthy boundary setting and conflict resolution.
Got it.
Go together.
That's good. One other question that I was going to ask you, and you kind of hinted towards it earlier, is that you don't want to be known as a catering thing, right? I've fallen under the same thing as well. But then when I like tell people what I do with events and private stuff and pop-ups and stuff, and there's like, oh, so you're a caterer, right? And so it's like people that, and I haven't had this conversation with anybody yet, so I want to talk through it with you because I feel like we're both opinionated on it. Why does catering have a bad rap? Why does no one want? So for me, professional chef, have a restaurant, do whatever, that's like the gold standard, right? Like that's to me, that's like being a independent label artist, right? Like you don't answer to anyone, like I own the thing, it's my own food, whatever. The complete polar opposite is being a bass player on a cruise ship doing cover songs. That's catering. You know what I mean? It's like this such bad rap. But then at the other end of the spectrum, you talk to anybody and they're like, catering's where the money is. Why does it have such a bad rap? And like, how can we reframe it so that like, yes, we can do what we love, but we're also making money?
So
you know what I mean?
I think the answer is in the question kind of thing.
Yep.
So partly catering has a bad rap because that's where the money is, and the more margin you can get, the lazier you become. So things become mass-produced. They become tin foils on those fucking chafer disher things. Yeah. I do not put those out. Like, we did it once, and I was like, never again. Yeah. We did it once because, again, in the early days, you take the business where you can get it, and the client was like, that's just what we want. Sure. And again, as an artiste, right, you have to find your lane, get to a place where you're confident in it, and then go, okay, I'm gonna miss out on $1,000 or $2,000, blah blah blah, but I'm also going to feel like I didn't sell my soul. Integrity. For that. Yeah. Because again, reputational. Because if someone goes to that event and we've got the foil trays and the chafing dishes out, it's just like, that's their impression of Voyager's table, and do I want that to follow me? So I think, and this is where I am not cautious, but I want to make clear that I have friends and companies that we collaborate with, that we want to work with, that are catering companies, and we want to work with them because they're fucking awesome. And they care about what they do, and every time you get them to do food, it is amazing. It is well produced, it's healthy, or it's like delicious, and there's care. But catering kind of has that reputation of being camp food. Totally. Right? Like, it's a bunch of foil trays with, heat elements under them, and you kind of follow a line and you get your food. I think that's partly our struggle. It is probably an identity thing. We don't want to be lumped into that kind of perception category. Also, with catering, the creativity stuff can be perceived to be limited. Like, there's limited opportunities. It's very cookie cutter. So, I think that's a thing. Right. For me, it's that's not my swim lane, because it's not my skill. I actually don't know how to mass produce for a professional event. Sure. 100 covers of canapes, pas hors d'oeuvres type thing. Now, have I done it? Yeah, we did it for Grande all the time. My record, I'm like, this is one of my greatest achievements in life, was 6 courses of canapes, or hors d'oeuvres, whatever you want to call them, for 650 people. Holy shit. Our budget was $650. Jesus Christ. Now, we did that because everybody was volunteering. We all donated our time, so it was food costs, and I am really good at making a food budget stretch. So, like, that's a life achievement. Is it what I think I'm good at doing professionally? No. Am I good at helping nonprofits find creative ways to stretch a budget as far as possible? Yeah. Sure. As demonstrated by my ability to feed 650 people for $650. Right. But the food production bit wasn't the bit where I was actually shining. It was in the sourcing and the resourcefulness and engaging volunteers and blah blah blah. It's a tricky thing, because we need catering companies, and me personally, when we're doing large scale event production, we need caterers who are excited to work with us, who want to do cool things. But we also recognize that has to cost money, right? Especially in King County, when minimum wage and blah blah blah, and then food costs of goods is like the number one thing that most food businesses struggle with. It's like food costs and labor. Right. So then how do you, navigate that? It's a really tricky thing. I've thought about completely flipping it on its head and just calling myself a caterer. And so that people are like, because there's such a negative sometimes to it, you know what I mean? Like, if you present yourself as that, but you just like, it's the under promise over deliver thing, right? Like, if you say like, you're a caterer, and then you show up and like do what you do as being amazing, you basically end up standing out in that category, right? Because at a certain point, no one cared. Like, you have to make it easy for someone to categorize you. Exactly, because if it doesn't make sense, they're not going to hire you. I mean, you can tell someone that you're a boutique event planner experience executor. They're not going to, like, how do you tell your friend about that? You know what I mean? Exactly. Constantly a balance. Language that we have used to kind of also help clarify, again, about setting boundaries. So when we talk about what we do, it's event production and specialty catering. Got it. So the word specialty Doesn't mean that it's more fancy than someone else who runs a catering business. It's more that it means that we're going to say no to certain types of things because it's not in our wheelhouse.
Totally.
Exactly.
Got it.
So that's kind of the very plain, 6th grade English, because you want to have language that is really able to be understood, whether it's your website or whatever, by the majority of the population.
Right.
And then it's going, all right, who's my target demographic? What's the language I use to reach them?
Yeah, got it.
So I think it's finding that balance. But yeah, it's been helpful for us to say event production and specialty catering, particularly in a city like Seattle, and I say this with love, that isn't as fancy event kind of out there. We're a city of introverts who like our Pacific Northwest life, and we wear our what's the North Face jackets and this and the funniest story is one of my friends in New York. I tell this all the time, but like I really saw the difference between the two cities, between New York and Seattle. We went out to dinner, and like he's like my personal stylist in the sense that we go shopping and he'll like dress me and I'll get outfits, blah blah blah. We went out to dinner, and I had gone to meet them straight from the office. It was a WeWork in New York that I was working out of, and I'm in my regular Seattle work appropriate gear, sneakers, black athleisure leggings, and a chambray denim top.
Sure.
It's dressed up for the office. It's dressed enough. He took one look at me with my backpack on my back, and he was like, the fuck are you wearing? You're in New York now. You cannot be telling people that I'm your stylist if you're going to dress like this. Oh my God. And I went...
Savage.
Oh, brutal, but true.
Yep.
And I was like,
It's true.
Yep.
It's so true.
And I kind of like that about Seattle, right? Like I like that about our city, that it's more understated.
Totally.
Because actually, for me, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do stuff that hasn't been done here yet, to wow people, to make a name for ourselves. We're not competing with quite as many people.
I mean, that's why I moved here.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. So yeah, it's kind of good and bad.
If there's anybody who's wanting to get in touch with you or ask any other questions or find more about you, where do you want people to find you online?
Instagram, at Voyager's Table. Voyager's Table. I think it's funny. Every time I say my business name to an American, I have to pronounce it American.
Voyagers.
Because we don't pronounce our R's in Australia.
Yeah.
So at Voyager's Table, or you can email us at hello@voyagerstable.com.
Got it. Hey, hello, there you are. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I certainly had a great time, but for now, I want to dive deeper and dissect some of the takeaways, starting first with that concept of spec work. I don't think this could be a larger enough takeaway, especially in the event space. If you're first starting off, do you want your second ever event to be hosting Elon Musk's birthday party? Fuck no, that sounds terrifying. Like, do you want event number 347 or event number 2708 to be Elon's birthday? Because then when the bartender shows up with 200 pounds of ice and there's no freezer, or when the dishwashing machine pipe explodes, or when one of the guests' mom throws up just inches of the cake, you might have caught in the interview I bring up that I've seen this before moment, and I think that's so powerful. So how do you get those 300 first events? Start with one spec event and realize that, hey, if this is something that I truly want, regardless of whether it's a hot dog food truck or a Cirque du Soleil themed wedding company, you can then offer those services to someone who is already looking for something in that wheelhouse and say that, hey, I'll do it for free. And then you take that and then you document that event. And that's how you get event number 2. And then you get feedback, and then you iterate, and then event number 3. And then you're kind of off to the races from there. Another point that she brought up, but then I was pretty quick to categorize it for her, was this idea of radical transparency. I personally didn't come up with that. That is from Ray Dalio's book, Principles, which I really, really enjoyed. I think Jade is super good at saying, look, I'm overwhelmed right now. I have time to help you, but this is what I need. And these are just some of the things that she's completely open about with her employees. And this is from me firsthand witnessing it at events. And then that will extend to her clients where she'll say things like, listen, this is the first time we're working with you and we want to do a great job. Tell us how we can do that. And I feel like that then leads to these rock solid relationships that she surrounds herself with. And I couldn't personally be a bigger fan of that practice. And of course, last up, a topic that I've been struggling with, but also champion a lot in these interviews is the idea of staying in your lane and saying no. Jade only says yes to something like 4 weddings a year because she knows that weddings are not in her lane. So why say yes to them if she's excited and confident at working with something else? So I think some of the language that she used, marketing herself as a specialty caterer and branding the business in a certain way, are definitely some tactful takeaways that you can use as kind of ways to automate that filtering process for clients. So you aren't getting these random questions because you categorize and talk about yourself in a certain way. If someone reads your page on Google and it says Polynesian-inspired pig roasts, you probably won't get the phone call from someone's daughter's backyard cupcake and tea party, right? And that's okay. It's not the end of the world if those requests don't come through, but you risk becoming a commodity if you're just kind of okay at a lot of things, or you can do a lot of things. Being able to say no is very, very valuable, and it's something that I'm personally working on as well. It's not to say that you can't expand either. I really liked the fact that Jade is open to experimenting outside of her typical realm, where she says between 10 and 15% of the events that she does are kind of challenging and pushing the limits of what she feels comfortable with. And that is how, over time, you're able to kind of improve as an organization. So I really hope you enjoyed this interview. If you're watching these takeaways on IGTV, the full podcast is available anywhere that you enjoy listening. You can also head over to justinkhanna.com/podcast to see not only this episode, but any of the show notes. You can also make a one-time donation to support this show through that link, or you can even become a monthly supporter of the Emulsion podcast on patreon.com/JustinKhanna. If you have any questions for Jade, please check out Voyager's Table. That is Voyager's Table right here on Instagram, or you can check out her links on any of the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, it's down low in the description. Until next time, roll the outro. Thanks for listening to the Emulsion podcast. I appreciate your ears more than you know. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help sponsor the show, head on over to patreon.com/JustinKhanna. Other ways you can help out right now include giving this show a review on iTunes so more people can find it. I also love seeing you folks liking and commenting on the video if you listen that way, or even just share this episode with a friend. Now's normally where I would tell you that my name is Justin Khanna, and I hope you have a good one, but you've probably got another podcast episode to listen to, so I'm just gonna get out of the way here. Excuse me.